Guys, there is no way to sugarcoat this. The Bears' offensive line is terrible this year. Caleb Williams is running for his life, and there is honestly no run game to speak of right now. Now, look, there is certainly room to blame the offensive play calling and just the scheme in general, but that's a conversation for another video. Instead, today, I want to focus on the team-building moves that were made to get us where we are. Every team has a finite amount of resources to build the best roster possible. We're not going to dive into every front office decision made in this video, but we will focus on what Ryan Poles and the Bears organization has done for their offensive line unit. What has worked, what hasn't worked, and what more could have been done. To be clear, we're going to focus on the moves that Ryan Poles has made in his tenure. The former offensive lineman spent most of his time in Kansas City working with the front office there before being hired by the Bears in 2022. He took over for a franchise that had acquired its franchise quarterback in the first round of the 2021 draft. Again, this is not a complete retrospective of the last 3 years of the Bears organization, but that context is important because in 2021, they had the 22nd ranked O-line according to PFF. In other words, 10th worst. With none of the starters from that season currently on the roster, except for Tevin Jenkins, a second-round rookie who worked into the starting lineup down the stretch, one of Ryan Poles' most important jobs was to help his young quarterback by improving the offensive line. With that, let's first look at how he prioritized the position in the draft. In the 3 draft classes that Poles has been in charge of, he has drafted a total of 6 offensive linemen, 4 of which were drafted in the 5th round or later of that 2022 draft class. Of those 6 players, 2 are currently starters, including the aforementioned 5th round pick Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright. The 10th overall pick by the Bears in the 2023 draft has struggled, but is a starter and still developing in his young career. In the most recent draft, we have a tackle out of Yale taken in the 3rd round who has not yet seen the field. And look, I don't want to gloss over what Poles has done well. While some may hesitate to call him a gem, Braxton Jones is a starting left tackle in the NFL that Poles was able to snag with the 168th pick out of Southern Utah. He is also the highest rated player according to PFF on the offensive line as of the recording of this video. That deserves some credit. And Poles has addressed the line in every draft in his tenure and has found moderate success doing so. But he has had 10 picks inside the top 100 and 2 have been offensive linemen. That speaks to the fact that Poles has prioritized other positions over the O-line, which in a vacuum is okay. The draft is not the only way to find offensive line talent. Unfortunately, that trend of not prioritizing the offensive line continued in the most recent offseason, despite knowing he had a big issue last year. The Bears O-line helped Justin Fields set the NFL sack rate record at 14.7% with 50 sacks given up last season. While that is terrible in every circumstance, I will say Fields often did the O-line no favors. They also dealt with injuries across the line, only seeing the same 5 guys on the field in 22% of snaps. Maybe those factors led the organization to believe the issue was not as big as the fan base and public perception believed it would be. The Bears went from the 15th ranked in spending on the O-line in 2023 to 23rd this year. They let longtime guard Cody Whitehair and center Lucas Patrick walk in free agency. Both players were signed to small one-year deals with other teams, so these are not losses that the NFL considered high value. But they patched together those losses with one-year deals to center Coleman Shelton from the Rams, journeyman guard Matt Pryor, and a trade for Ryan Bates from the Bills, who was placed on IR after Week 1. Bates, who was traded for a 5th-round pick in March, was a serviceable backup for the Bills, playing in 73 games and starting 19 times in Buffalo. These moves indicate to me that Poles went into the offseason believing they had the answers at both tackle positions and just needed to address the interior offensive line next to Tevin Jenkins. They did so by going bargain bin shopping for guys that they felt could fill the need. The Bears organization didn't take the need seriously and instead funneled assets into other positions. They entered the 2024 season top 10 in spending to 4 position groups: running back, wide receiver, tight end, and linebacker. All 4 of which are increases from the 2023 season. And look, bargain bin shopping certain positions isn't necessarily a bad thing. Every team has to make tough decisions. In a vacuum, I wouldn't hate the move because we've seen teams take 1-year bottom barrel contract guys and utilize them in an offense effectively. But in this situation, these moves only make sense if you have studs at the tackle positions that can make up for below average interior play. And I'm sorry, but that's just not the case so far and it was an insane gamble to believe that it would be. Instead, you're getting at best average tackle play and way below average play from the guys you brought in. Even Tevin Jenkins on a contract year is ranked 39th out of 70 ranked guards on PFF. These are all decisions that are made in March and April that directly impact the product on the field. If you look at the major moves that have been made along with the draft choices, I think Poles is probably overvaluing his guys and putting too much faith in his ability to find cheap options that he can make work. Poles is a former offensive lineman that spent the majority of his front office career with Andy Reid and the Chiefs, where the Chiefs and Coach Reid have always had a knack for finding guys in the mid to late rounds of the draft at the offensive line position. But even the Chiefs have invested heavily in the offensive line in recent years. In fact, if you compare the two teams' spending, the difference is drastic. And while I understand that the quarterback situation is drastically different also, the difference in spending on things like the offensive line, running back, and linebacker positions are notable. And again, I understand this is not a perfect comparison. Team construction is vastly different depending on situation. The Bears spending more on proven wide receivers to help a young quarterback is fine. The Bears valuing defense by spending the 10th most on that side of the ball is a luxury that they have because they are currently spending less on the quarterback position. Still, the point stands that Poles is not taking the same team-building approaches that we have seen the Chiefs find success with. The Bears have a total of 8 picks, including 4 in the top 3 rounds in next year's draft. I'd be willing to bet at least one of those first 4 picks is used on the offensive line. While it's far too early to look ahead to the draft or future free agency, from a team-building perspective, there's not much more that can be done. Offensive linemen don't grow on trees, and it is incredibly rare to see notable guys moved mid-season. And look, the Bears should be excited for the future. This is a good roster. The defense is already great. The wide receiver unit is arguably in the top half of football with a much higher ceiling if Odunze develops into the guy that I believe it can be. They have a quarterback that the entire NFL world believes has the upside of an elite level superstar. Poles and the Bears front office must make the offensive line a top priority in free agency and the draft. Until then, it's on the coaching staff to help protect Caleb as much as they can while also coaching up the guys they got.